time for a clutch. And the car that this is going on, 2005 Infiniti G35. And yes, I'm filming another video of this right now. We're doing valve cover gaskets and spark plugs. So I figured it'd be a lot easier on me to do the transmission because I'm going to get to the top bell housing bolts with the intake off, just because they are right down there, and it's a lot easier for you to get to them if you do it that way. So I figured it'd be the perfect time to do this. So like I said, there will be 2 videos up on this G35, so keep an eye out. I do not know which one will be up first, depends on when parts for the valve cover comes in. But we're going to get this, and the kit that we have, the customer supplied the kit. This is a stage 2 clutch kit right here from Competition Clutch, and he did get a rear main seal and a flywheel. I do not know what brand flywheel he got, but he's got a brand new flywheel. It's in the box below right here, and then the rear main seal is with it as well. So I'm going to get this up on the lift, get it about as high as I can, and we're going to start taking stuff off. I got the car up in the air on the lift. Here's the arm, and as you can see, this exhaust right here needs to come out. It's just this center section right here. Should be 2 bolts back there, then 4 in the front. And what I'm going to do is I soak these down right here with some penetrating oil on all the bolts because they do look pretty rusty. So while those are soaking, I'm going to take out this front drive shaft right here, and they are 18mm bolts and nuts on the back. And what we're going to do is I got it in neutral, so I'm going to put a screwdriver up in there, but make sure you mark where this drive shaft goes because you do not want to get it out of balance. I know it may not make a difference on this since it is just a drift car for them, but we're going to make sure that we put it all back the way it's supposed to be. I don't care if it's a junker or a brand new car. I like to put things back the way they're supposed to be. But we're going to get this little half shaft out real quick, and this end right here just slips in and out, so you don't have to worry about taking anything off on that. But let me pull this drive shaft out while these bolts are soaking. I got the mark on the drive shaft now. I just put it in one spot, that way I know it just goes in that one location. And as an FYI, mine were 17s, not 18s, because I couldn't get the wrench onto this because it was hitting the yoke right there. But we have that off, and now we're going to try to pry it back some. Oh yeah, she's coming off easy. Should slide in pretty easy. And I did take these 2 bolts out right there. They did break, so I'll have to get new ones, and I'm going to get them a new gasket as well. But let me get a drain pan, and I will put it underneath here, and it should just slide right out. Oh yeah, it's starting to come already. But let me get a drain pan, I'll get it out, and then I'll show you what it looks like. Well, here's his exhaust. I ended up cutting it off at the where the catalytic converters come down because the bolts are so rusted. I didn't want to break them off, and on one side it does go through the catalytic converters like pressed in studs, and I know I'd never get those out, and I can weld that up a lot easier, and I can replace that. But when I cut off the, I think it's passenger side, when I cut the passenger side off, the whole thing fell down because it is rotted off right there. So I will let him know about that, ask him what he wants to do about that flex pipe piece right there. I may have to end up replacing both of them because the other one doesn't look too great either. But I'll let him know about that and see what he wants to do. But we're just going to keep trucking along with the clutch replacement. My next step is to actually undo all the wires. Here is the drive shaft as well. That is the front portion. Right here is where I marked it at. That way we know where it goes and have a reference point. But next step is to start taking off all the wires, and I'm going to try to undo the shifter up there. As you can see, it's right there. If I can get that glare out of your way. But we have some wiring right here. This just goes to your O2 sensors, and we got like clutch connection, then drive shaft, steering connection, or shifter connection, if I can talk right today. And then we can actually start removing some of these bell housing bolts. Like I said, the top two I'm going to get from up top, just because I have the intake off already, and it is a lot easier to do it like that. And then once we get that, we can remove this cross member right here, and once we get the cross member out, we can lower her down and try to pull her out. But like I said, let me get some of these wires off over here. Like, you got some back here as well, and you got some right there. I think it's just more like speed cable, speedometer gear and stuff like that. But like I said, let me just pull all this stuff off, and then we'll start getting the bell housing bolts off. Okay, I went ahead and removed the shifter from the linkage. All it is one 12mm bolt, and this little rubber housing covers it. All you have to do is pull it straight down, and you can see that 12mm bolt. And once you pull it out, it will fall down, and you should be able to clear it whenever you're dropping the transmission down. You should be able to clear it out of here. Comes straight through that little bracket right there. But you will have to go up top and disconnect everything from this portion right here, just because it does bolt down to that. So you need to make sure that you remove that right there and pull it out from inside the car. Also, I got most of the wiring. The only one I cannot get is this one right here, because I'm going to have to lower the back down a little bit in order to get it, because it is up in here and I can't get my hands up inside of there to pull the connector off. But you will have a connection. Oh, let me get my light. You will have a connection. So you'll have a connection right here, right there, there, and then it's bolted on in 3 different spots. Like right here, and then there's 2 bolts up there. But we got all the connectors off. You will have one connector in the front, which is right there, and here it is right there, and then those 2 right there go to your O2 sensors. I did separate those because it will not let the transmission fall down if you do not take it out of the bracket. But next step is to remove the clutch cylinder. It's right there. It's just bolted on with these 2 bolts right there, and then we're going to pull this down, and then we're going to lower the car, get back inside, and we're actually going to take the upper bell housing bolts off and take the shifter out. But I'm going to pull these out. I do believe those are 12s also. Oh no, they may be 13s. No, they're 12s. So yeah, we can go ahead and pull those loose. I don't know how tight they are, but yeah, we'll go ahead and pull that off and get it out of the way. That way it's just sitting there, and we don't have to worry about disconnecting the actual line from it, just because we don't want it to lose any fluid if we don't have to. We're back up top, and I don't know how well y'all can see down in there, but there's going to be some 17mm bolts down in there for the bell housing. I'm going to take those off right here. Let's see if I get my hand down. There's one right here, and there's one a little bit further down, and then there's one on the side over there. But I'm going to pull these off from up here, just because it is a lot easier to do so with this intake off. Once I get them out, I'll show you what they look like. Here are the 17mm bolts that go on the top of the bell housing. That's what they look like. I got 4 of them out from up top. They weren't really that hard to do. I did have to move one of the brackets that holds this wire loom back in here. It's right there. As you can see, it was only 2 10mm bolts that held that in. We removed that, and we got the other 2 that were on the passenger side. But we're going to disconnect the battery now because we are going to be getting close to the starter, and I do not want to mess up anything with the starter. Sorry. Disconnected the positive cable just for right now, and now that we got that off, we can go ahead and shut the hood again and raise the car up and finish getting the rest of the bell housing bolts out. And once we lower it down a little bit, tilt it, we can get to that back connector. I'm inside the car now. I'm going to try to pull this shifter out. It should just be like 4 bolts that hold it in, and this trim piece. Most time you want to get something underneath here to pull this up, but this one right here, it actually is already loose. So we're going to pull this right here up a little bit and out of the way. And if you see right here, there's 4 10mm bolts right there. I'm going to pull these out real quick, and then after we lift this up, there should be, I think, 4 more underneath there. But let me take this off real quick and I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what it looks like without the shifter in it. I thought there was 4, there was only 3 in here. And there is a notch right here that goes with this piece right here. This is like the plastic knuckle that goes in there. So it can only go in one way because there is that notch. But now whenever we lower the transmission, we don't have to worry about the shifter, and we got that out. But I'm going to keep the spring with the shifter and the knuckle and everything just so we don't lose it. And I'm going to set this back down in here once we lower the transmission down a little bit, just so we can keep that from getting all over the interior. But we do have it out, and all the bolts are 10mm. Like I said, there's 4 for the actual cover, you can see right there, and then 3 in the actual transmission. And that's pretty much taking that out. I just put all the bolts in like a little central location where I knew that they were, and plus the bolts that go into the actual transmission are shouldered. That way you can't get them mixed up. I'm back under the car now, and I finished taking the rest of the bell housing bolts off. The 2 on this side are the 2 bolts that go into the starter, so that's why I took the battery cable off, because we were going to have to remove the starter, and the starter is right here. So it should be this bolt and this bolt right there, now where you can see it. And then here and here are 2 14mm bolts that come in from the front of the car. You can get it without taking this brace off, you just have to use a wrench. Then there is a 14 here, a 17 right above it, and then there is a 14 right here about in line with these bolts right there that hold the slave cylinder in, and that one comes in from the front too. And that should be the rest of the bolts that you have to take off. So now all we have to do is pretty much take the cross member out, and whenever it lowers down, we can get that other sensor up there off, and that will be the everything that we need to drop it down. But I'm going to get my transmission jack underneath here, and then I'm going to start taking these 4 bolts on the cross member. I do believe, hold on, let me make sure. Yes, they are 14mm that hold this cross member on. Sorry, I know the camera was probably in a weird angle right there, but what we're going to try to do is just lower it down with the cross member still on it. That way that we don't have to worry about taking that off. But like I said, let me grab my transmission jack, and then we'll slide it underneath here and see if we can get her to come out.